your dreams.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm just going to be doing a review of Honkai Star Rail. By the way, if you happen to like the content, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It'd be greatly appreciated. Honkai Star Rail is a turn-based gacha game developed by HoYoverse. The gameplay in Honkai Star Rail is very simple. In fact, it's so simple, comparing this game to other turn-based games would be an insult to those turn-based games, whether it's the Persona series, the Mother series, or the Paper Mario series. The turn-based combat in Honkai Star Rail is just very simple. You have a basic attack, a skill, and a burst. Whenever you use a skill or a basic attack, it regenerates energy to fill up your burst. In order to use a skill, you need a skill point. You can get a skill point by using a basic attack. You can only have a max of 5 skill points. The turn order is based around who has the highest speed. If you have the highest speed, you'll obviously go first. The party that you use consists of 4 characters. Each character in this game comes with a different path, which are basically the classes of this game. There are 7 playable paths in Honkai Star Rail. You got the destruction path, which is basically like your bruisers. They're the offense and the defense. Preservation, which is basically your tank. The hunt path is a single target DPS. Erudition is an AoE DPS. Harmony path are your buffers. The nihility paths are the debuffers. And characters in the abundance path are your heal sluts. Obviously, since this is a gacha game, you do have to roll for these characters and get lucky in order to pull for a few of these characters. The paths in this game are a pretty interesting take. I think HoYoverse decided to do this with Honkai Star Rail because with each character having a path, they basically have one specific role. Unlike in their other game, Genshin Impact, where there are like certain characters that can do like mini roles, the path system is basically there so they don't accidentally make another Bennett, aka another character that can just fill multiple roles. There's also an elemental system in this game in which enemies are weak to certain elements, and if you use a specific element that the enemy is weak to, it basically breaks their shield, which basically has a chance to delay the enemy's turn. I think the elemental weakness in this game is pretty good. It basically encourages you to build more characters, so you're not just using the same 4 characters over and over and over again. So if you're struggling against a boss and it has a specific weakness to an element that you don't have built up, you can basically build a character that has that element and you might have an easier time with that boss. As I stated earlier, the combat in this game is just very simple. You basically use a skill whenever you have skill points, and you just basic attack whenever you don't have any skill points. And you can use a character's burst whenever you want, whenever their burst gauge is up. So you don't have to wait for that character's turn to use their burst. That's just basically Honkai Star Rail's combat system. There is no dodge or evade stat. There are items in the game, but you can't even use them in combat, which is kind of weird. I've never heard of a turn-based game that doesn't let you use items in combat. The healing items in the game are essentially useless because, for one, if you're playing a healer, you don't necessarily need those healing items. And number 2, as I said earlier, you can't use items in combat. So what's the point of having healing items if you can't even use them during combat? Not to mention, there are so many teleport waypoints in this game. You basically can just go to one in order to restore your health if you needed. But because you can't use healing items in combat, you're basically stuck either using a healer or a preservation character in order to keep your team alive in combat. There are tons of things that HoYoverse can do to spice up the combat in this game, but I doubt that they'll ever do that because the game makes a lot of fucking money. HoYoverse has no incentive to spice up the combat because why would they? They're swimming in bank right now. At the end of the day, this is just an auto battler, right? Throughout this whole video, I'm basically auto battling in this game. The only time I don't auto battle is if I'm doing like an elite boss or just like a general boss, but other than that, 90% of the time, you're just auto battling. I have no fucking idea how Honkai Star Rail gets even views on Twitch. Most of the Twitch streamers are auto battling. You're watching the gameplay itself. How the fuck is that fun? Throughout this whole video, I do hope you're at least alt-tabbing, because what the fuck is fun about watching the gameplay itself? It's not. I digress. The gameplay does look flashy. The animations do look beautiful. If you are looking for an auto If you are looking for an auto battler just to chill out to, then yeah, I could recommend Honkai Star Rail. The dailies also don't really take that long. They take at least 5 minutes tops, maybe even less than 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes max, but they really don't take that long. I do think they're a little bit more shorter than Genshin's. In Honkai Star Rail, there is a map to explore, but it's basically just a bunch of hallways. If you didn't notice already, the game does have a sci-fi theme, so it takes place in space. You basically travel to other planets, and I say planets very loosely because the first world is basically a space station. The second world is a real planet, but it doesn't really feel like a planet because, you know, like I said, you're only exploring hallways. And the third world is basically China that is under a warehouse, basically. So in the third world, you're not really exploring a planet, you're basically exploring space China's warehouses, basically. I can't really comment too much about the story in this game. I kind of skip through some of it, but from what I can understand, the main character has like this thing called the Stellaron inside them. The Stellaron is basically like this phenomenon that fucks up planets and shit. The main character joins this organization called the Astral Express, which basically travels to other planets on a train, and they basically stop like the Stellaron phenomenon, and that's just basically the story. The gacha system in this game is exactly 100% identical to Genshin Impact's. You have the limited banner, standard banner, and the weapon banner. You get a guaranteed 5-star at the 80th pull, and your very first 80th pull, it's a 50-50. So you'll either get the limited character or you'll get a standard character. Same deal for the light cone banner, aka the weapon banner, which is still a scam, but it is a little bit more better than Genshin's weapon banner. Because in Star Rail, the weapon banner only has one weapon, while in Genshin Impact, the weapon banner has 2 weapons, so you'll either get one or the other in Genshin, but at least in Star Rail, you'll at least get the weapon. You only roll on the weapon banner if you just care for a little bit more damage. Standard banner in Honkai Star Rail is also pretty good because if you pull 300 times, you basically have a chance to select a standard character. For free-to-plays, this will take a very long time, but regardless, you still have a chance to get a standard character if you are looking for a standard character. Unlike in other gacha games in which for the standard characters, if you're hunting for a specific standard character, you basically have to get lucky. But at least in Star Rail, they give you a chance to pick whatever standard character you want if you are missing a standard character that you want or need. Also, whenever you roll on either of these banners, you do get currency for rolling on these banners, and you can use that currency to exchange for 4-star characters or even for 5-star standard weapons. Overall, the banner system in this game is pretty good. It's a little bit more better than Genshin's. Now, as for the gear system in this game, there is a gear system, and that's basically the relics. The relic system in this game is very ass. It's basically 100% identical to Genshin's. There are 6 pieces of relics that you have to farm for in Honkai Star Rail. Each of those pieces being the head piece, the glove piece, the chest piece, the boots, the orb, and the rope. Each of these pieces will have one main stat, and there will also be substats along with them. The head piece and the glove piece will always be the same main stats, being HP and attack respectively. If you're familiar with Genshin Impact's artifact system, then you know where this is going already. You basically have to farm for a specific main stat piece for the chest, boots, orb, and snake pieces, or what do I call it? Snake. Rope pieces. So the main stats that you can get from the latter 4 pieces are either going to be HP, attack, defense, crit rate, crit damage, effect hit rate, which is basically like a chance for you to debuff the enemy, and a random elemental bonus, which is either going to be a physical, quantum, imaginary, fire, ice, wind, and electric. Oh, there's also a healing bonus main stat as well. So when you're farming for relics for the latter 4, you're hoping to get at least one main stat that you're looking for, and you have to hope that you get some pretty good substats along with the main stat. Grinding for relics can take months, and the game has only been out for like 1 to 2 months now, so nobody, unless you're like a super whale, has good relics right now. Farming for relics will take a lot of time, so, you know, just good luck, really. With their gear system being so RNG based, there's really no point in seething or malding over the difficulty in this game because it really requires luck. If your relics are bad, then your characters are going to be bad, but it's really no big deal because you can't really change that unless you're just lucky. I don't know if HoYoverse will ever add quality of life to their gear systems in their games. If Genshin Impact doesn't have a good system in their artifact system, then I don't know if Honkai Star Rail will ever get a quality of life change for their Relic system. I really do hope HoYoverse does add a quality of life system to their gear system one day, because they could really use it. I also forgot to mention, in order to farm for the orbs and ropes, you do have to play the game's simulated universe. Speaking of the simulated universe, let's talk about the end game for Honkai Star Rail. So we got the simulated universe, which is the easier one, and we got the Mirrors of Chaos, which is a little bit harder. The simulated universe basically consists of you exploring a dungeon with your team of 4, and you basically beat up enemies, elite enemies, and eventually a big boss. Along the way to the big boss, you can get buffs along the way, and the buffs that you can get are pretty random. You can also get debuffed as well if you're unlucky. Simulated universe is a pretty fun game mode. I enjoy it quite a lot. Simulated universe is the only way for you to farm the orbs and I was about to say snakes again. The orbs and the ropes to gear up your characters. It does cost Trailblaze power to get them, aka your resin, your stamina, your whatever. Or it can cost like this key that you get after each simulated universe reset. And the simulated universe resets weekly. So every week you do have something to look forward to in Honkai Star Rail. Although the simulated universe can be a little repetitive because you're basically just, beating up enemies over and over and over again. Every character is basically viable in the simulated universe because of all the buffs and stuff that you can get. The rewards are also pretty good. You do get Stellar Jades, which is the currency that you use to roll for banners in this game, or in this mode. Now, the Mirrors of Chaos, on the other hand, is basically a little bit more harder. You definitely do need to focus on the meta for this game mode. And I say meta pretty loosely because you're not really forced to do Mirrors of Chaos. The rewards in Mirrors of Chaos are not even that worth it, in my opinion. At least in the simulated universe, you can get like Relic XP, which is pretty good, and also materials that you use to ascend characters. Mirrors of Chaos is basically just a DPS check. You basically have to defeat waves of enemies in a certain amount of turns, and that's just basically it. Overall, Honkai Star Rail is a very casual game. I would only recommend this game if you're just looking for another game to chill out to. Very pretty to look at. The waifus look pretty good. It has pretty cool endgame content. The dailies don't take that long. I do plan to cover more Honkai Star Rail content on this channel. That's going to be the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think. Agree, disagree, let me know, and I'll see you guys later.
Bye bye now. Come again soon.